No, I'm tired of that shit, you motherfucking triple green motherfuckers. Bitches, we love you, motherfucker.
Bobby Digi, Bob Digital, shit is critical. Lay the fuck up inside the hospital. It's a riddle of the sphinx. Bitch happy jinx with high jinks. Jubilee snatched my neck. It was the sex. 12-ounce bottles of Becks had me drunk. One night laid up with the old dirt. The 10 sacks of skunk. Just met this whole last month. Looking like a bitch with a whoop in the trunk. I pushed up like a push-up stick. One hand up near my cheek, the other hand was holding my dick. I said power equal. Boom, Bishop people. I be Bobby D-I-G-I-2.
That right?
Word and exact. Girl, you gotta smile to make a nigga hard track. Word to drills like $1,000 bill. Close your eyes, count to 3 and click your heels, and we can end up in my place, face to face, butt naked. I'll invade your inner space. Straight up, bro, damn, I could taste it. One drop of sperm, the guard wouldn't waste it. Over the quilt, I'd rather put inside you so your breast be filled with milk. And we can lay up, and I can squeeze it till it tilts. My house built on stilts, it's banging like the Hilton. Look, now how you feeling? Give me some feedback, boo, cause I need that.
But look, Bobby, where's the beer and the weed at?
Well, girl, shit, I got more than a little. She set me up for the kiss of the Black Widow.
You couldn't get a flick of the hype outfit, cause the way that I'ma dress this style is mad wow. Enough to make a town a woman scream out. Whether at a party or just in bed, or thoughts on a song, bitch, keep that in your head. My beats are funky, my rhymes are funky. Sometimes I say, well, motherfucker, what's the recipe? I don't know. I ask my mama, she don't know. Go ask your brother. It's all about me and the place to be. Nigga, you're all that. Motherfucker, that shit is jizz. It's mad motherfucking game, and this a goddamn shame. How many motherfuckers wanna know this thing? Ain't so, yo, I'm not going past the break. Shake and motivate, stimulate.
About his ways that you dying to have in your clutch. Fall in love like a drug, hooked out into her love blood. Fucking so much down, you only bust blood. Inside the scud missile, look like tissue. Now laid up inside the hospital. Bobby Digital's are critical, cause the testicles is drained. Nah, I ain't doing it right?
All you bitches, put your raps together. I'm doing it. All you niggas, put your dicks together.
Right, guys, my iPad, my nephew's got my iPad, so I'm not putting on no on music today. We're just gonna have to hold that vibration deep inside us, yeah. But I wanted to do a live on the Krassa Messa, Christ consciousness and Christ. You understand? Because we still, as people, we still like give more credence to the biblical kind of religious concept of Christ than we do to the real concept and the real culture and tradition of having a Karas consciousness. So I wanted to base on this topic because this book goes heavily into it. This little small powerful book, The Golden Child, goes into the whole concept of messiahs and Christed ones, and the different stories about messiahs, and based around the theme of the chosen children of God. Some people call them the chosen children of Israel. Do you understand? Or Israelites. In this book, we show you that the whole Israelite thing was really about Nubian Cushite people, whether they're in the Levant as Shemites or whether they're in Africa as Hamites. It was really about us, and that a group of Muzungu people stole all of the furniture of that ideology and gave it to themselves, and they were called Habiru people. So this book kind of goes into the story of Osiris and King Tut and Akhenaten, and ties it up with the whole biblical Jesus thing and Tammuz and the Egyptian creation story and stuff like that. So I thought, yo, this is perfect, because it was one sister on my backup account that mentioned it to me about the plurality of the Messiah and how she's been having a lot of trouble finding information on the various different Messiah stories. So after seeing that comment, it kind of sparked in my head, yo, I haven't even done a live about the Krassa Messa yet, you know, because most people don't even know what that word is. All they know is Christ in the Greek Muzungu form. If you say to someone Krassa Messa, not everyone knows that's the same word as Christ, but it's the way that the Egyptians used the word. So with that being said, who paneteru menunu cheyu kawun lalul bihu, he, she, the deities, who nothing exists except by way of he, she, the deities, the mother, father, creator, spirit. I ask for permission from the ancestors to speak on this subject and to bring some clarity to it for those who might need clarity on it. My recommended read for the day, other than my own book, if you haven't got it, The Golden Child, Israel. Yeah. My other recommended read is Imhotep the African, and this is by Robert Bouval. This is the part 2 to Black Genesis. Really important book, man. This book blew my head off because we don't really get books written about Imhotep. Like, if you can find me another book that someone's wrote meticulously about Imhotep, then I'm happy to read it, but I ain't found none. So when I heard that one of my favorite independent Egyptologists, because there are some that do support what we say, like Robert Bouval, he's an independent, and after he exposed the world to the fact that the pyramids line up with Orion's belt, it was in his book first, the Orion Mystery, where he revealed that to the world, that hold on, because he's an engineer, and he just noticed these pyramids align with the stars, with Orion's belt. So he was kind of like the first geezer in modern times to bring that back to the world. And he's always admitted that the Egyptians were black people. This is a Frenchman born in Egypt, and he was like, yo, the Egyptians are black people. So he's wrote loads of books, man, brilliant books, yeah. But 2 of the most significant in terms of black people is Black Genesis and this, Imhotep the African, which are 2 of his latest books. So that is my recommended read. And on the back here, it's even got a review by Anthony T. Browder. You understand? So, yo, we mess with Robert Bouval. He real. You understand? So that's my recommended read. Imhotep the African, Architect of the Cosmos. That's what it's called, yeah? So with that being said, I want to take the story back to the first Messiah, yeah? The word Messeh, M-E-S-S-E-H, Messeh. That in Nuwabic or hieroglyph means anointed, yeah? The anointed one, yeah? And so Messeh means anointed, and so does Khristed. It means a Messiah who's anointed. So if you say Krassa Messa, you're saying the anointed Messiah. And you can find that in Egyptian records on the temple of Akhenaten. He referred to himself as the Krassa Messa. He referred to himself as the anointed one, and we'll get to his story a bit deeper down. But the first story of someone calling themselves anointed by the divine or by higher powers was the story of Osiris in Kemet, which is going back some 40 odd thousand years. We can say 4,000 if it makes people feel better. But Osiris, or Asaru, which means the whole one of Re, the mighty throne, was the first Necha to recognize Christ consciousness, meaning to master his Kundalini energies as a human being, as somebody on earth, and activate his pineal gland, fully open, use the key to open his pineal gland and activate both lobes of both hemispheres of his brain. So he was known as the Messi, or the Krassa, the anointed one, the whole one of Re. And because he was anointed, he did have a lot of other beings who were jealous of his position and jealous of the love that he got, not only from the rest of the gods, but also because he was representative of Amun-Ra, but also they was jealous of the love that he was getting from humanity, because him and Isis were showing humanity civilization, being that they're from the Enki clan, Enkyites, who were dealing with Kundalini energy and stuff. So between Osiris, Ta, Tahuti, Isis, they was the ones, and Ma'at, they was the ones that were really showing humanity like agriculture and certain astronomy and anything to do with betterment, medicine, like homeopathy, how to deal with certain sicknesses and stuff. So he became known, Osiris or Asaru, as the anointed Christ, or the Christ figure in the first organic spirituality on earth. And he came from Sirius, and that's what his name means, Asaru, or Osiris, Osiris, yeah, meaning the one who came through Sirius, or the master of Sirius, yeah. So all Messiah stories trace their origin back to the first story of the Krassa Messa, which was Osiris, who we're taught to call Osiris, and his wife Aset or Isis. Yeah. Now, as I said before, there's two agendas when it comes to the Anunnaki. So this side of the agenda is the good side of the agenda that was trying to give to humans and was trying to establish civilization and organic spirituality and growth, so that after the human project, the humans will be smart enough and knowledgeable enough to step into their own divinity and to step into their own godhood. And the first holy city of the Krassa Messa was in Abydos in Egypt, and this is before any Mecca of the Muslims, before any Jerusalem or for any Hebrew Israelites or Christians. The holy city on earth was known as Abydos, and pilgrims used to come to Abydos to pay homage to Osiris. Yeah. As I said, all of this consciousness or Messiah stuff was based on you developing your higher self. It was a Gnostic doctrine or a Gnostic tradition where it'll get people to develop their higher self by turning on and activating their pineal gland, yeah, which is the Kundalini energy or the serpent energy. And because it comes from Enki, who is half reptilian, and the Anunnaki and all that, the church and the mosque and the synagogue, all that Jewish stuff, they associate anything to do with Kundalini and chakra and awakening with the devil. And that's why a lot of the time you go around religious people, whether they're Christian or Muslim or whatever, and as soon as you touch on Ma'at with the eye symbolism or any snake symbolism, all of a sudden like, yo, that's some devil thing, because their brain's telling them that they're associating it with the devil from the Bible, from scriptures, Torah, Bible and Quran. They've not had they've not researched it deep enough to know that before the Bible, the scriptures turned the snake into an evil symbol. The snake or the serpent used to be a symbol of wisdom, meaning it was a symbol of your Kundalini awakening, your pineal power. And that's why certain Nesu wore the Uraeus on the brow to show that your pineal gland had been activated and you attained that dragon, or you had mastered that serpent Kundalini energy, because the pineal gland was seen as the seat of God or the seat of consciousness. You see how we spoke about Anu sitting on a throne? You've got your own most high throne inside your temple. This is why it's called a temple, because it's a temple. Yeah, and the throne in there is the pineal gland. And when you bring your higher self into position, that higher self sits itself on that throne, on your pineal gland. So that's called the seat of consciousness in man, or the seat of God in man, because that aspect of you, the higher self, that's God, that's the Most High, that's the part of Anu that he said he breathed his spirit, his spark into you, and man became a living soul. So now that spark or that higher self, you must bring that in line with its throne and sit the higher self on its throne. So he's sitting on the seat of God or the seat of consciousness, and you become the enlightened individual, or what Buddhists may call enlightened. Do you see what I'm saying? And Osiris was the first one to bring this kind of teaching and this kind of expression of the Christ consciousness onto this earth realm plane and give it to humans and tell humans that you can activate your Christ consciousness. Kind of the same thing that they say about Jesus in the Bible, when Jesus says, yo, you do greater things than I'm doing. They're getting all this from Asar. And it's funny because even Muslims, one of their 5 prayers, you got Fajr, then you got Dhuha, then you got Asr, then you got Maghrib, then you got then you got Isha. Yeah, so Fajr, Dhuha, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. Now the third one, Asr, that's Osiris's name. So the fact that they call one of their prayers Asr, which is the name of Osiris, shows you where all of these teachings really are coming from, even if they want to show you or not. Even the word Ansaru Allah, helpers of Allah, if you take the N out, Ansar, it's like Asar. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's all coming from the same root words. And a lot of them don't know that. But it's easy for me to spot, like, hold on, one of the praises called Asar. That's like, yo, that must be a link to Osiris somewhere. Do you understand? And Osiris is the master of Judgment Day according to us. So when they say Allah is going to have a Judgment Day, they really got that from us, because it's Osiris. When you go on if you go to Abydos and look at the Temple of Seti on the walls, yeah, you'll see Osiris sitting in the hall of judgment, meaning he'll have 12 Neteru around him, and he's sitting on the seat of judgment because he's the judge. He's going to judge how your heart is after your heart's been weighed, yeah, against the feather of Ma'at. He's the judge. So he's the judge of Judgment Day. And they take that into the Quran with Judgment Day and Allah's going to have this big judgment. They really get that from us. You see what I'm trying to say? So yeah, Osiris was seen as the whole one of Ra, yeah, but a lot of people don't understand Ra, the first Ra, the son of Anu, was disagreeable, and he treated the people harshly. Do you understand what I'm saying? He treated the people harshly, took them as slaves to certain ones of his planets in Orion, like the planet Heliopolis. A lot of these sites in Egypt are named after actual planets that some of these deities reside on in their own constellation. So Ra came from the planet Heliopolis, which harbors one of them stars in Orion's belt. I'm not sure if it's Mintaka, Alnilam, or Alnitak, but one of them has about 9 planets around them, and one of them planets is Heliopolis, where Ra and them come from. They're a Orion dynasty. Do you understand? So he was going on with disagreeableness and treating humans a kind of way on Earth, and it was when the good Neteru, called the Kentokra, which means those who are against Ra, they're against his disagreeable ways. Ones like Ma'at, Osiris, Anubis, Horus, Khonsu, Amun-Ra. Yeah, there's certain different Neterus who are against Ra. And Ra's biggest fan is Set, or Sutuk, as to why Set became known as the devil, as Osiris' brother, because when the Neteru decided, yo, we need to overthrow this Ra guy, you know, because he's moving disagreeable. And because just like humans, you have good Neteru, bad Neteru, and neutral Neteru. Just like you have good humans, bad humans, and neutral humans. Just like you have good greys, bad greys, neutral greys. Good reptiles, bad reptiles, neutral reptiles. So when you're dealing with the Neteru, it's no different. Not all of them are good. So Ra and them was on a disagreeable thing where they didn't really have no regard for us as human beings. And remember, this is in the first Adama project. This is before the Anunnaki and them came down in Enki's time to start up their second Adama project, which is the Lulu Amelu project. Things were already running in Egypt with different types of Anunnakis coming down here, Ra and them, with their disagreeableness and stuff. He got overthrew. And he got overthrew by Ma'at, Isis, Anubis, Osiris, and Isis. And for a while, he was hunting them. Do you understand? He was hunting them. And it was Osiris, Isis, and Sutuk who made a plan to overthrow Ra. And then at the last minute, Sutuk, or Set, went and told Ra and snitched on Isis and Osiris. And they got in trouble for it. They got imprisoned by Ra for it. And they had to be freed by the Harmish's child. The Harmish's child is the story of Horus, which goes into your Bible as the story of Jesus, as the Messiah child. Because you have Krassa Messa, and who is seen as the God. Like in religion, we see it as a Messiah. In Kemetian times, it weren't just a Messiah. The Messiah was a God. So when people like Akhenaten were using the title Krassa Messa, he's the God on earth. He was the Osiris of his time. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then his son becomes the son of God. So King Tut, the son of Akhenaten, the Krassa Messa, King Tut becomes the son of the Krassa Messa, or the son of God. That's where they take that shit and stick it on Jesus and say, okay, Jesus is the son of God. So like I'm saying, in Akhenaten's time, which is 1352 BC, circa 1352 to 1336 BC, they were rolling with this title, Krassa Messa, meaning I'm the Osiris of my time. I'm the God of my time. And any son that you had as a God, he becomes the son of God. So a lot of the story when they're telling you about Jesus, yeah, some of it is about the black man who was living in that region in the Levant, named as Joshua, but also a lot of the story is about other characters. Some of the stories about Osiris, some of the stories about Horus, some of the stories about Akhenaten, some of the stories about King Tut, some of the stories about Mithra, some of the stories about Buddha, some of the stories about Krishna, who is the Indian way of saying Christ. The Greek way is Christos. So that's the Greek story. Krishna, that's the Indian story. When they're telling you Christ went to India and studied with the Swamis and all that shit there. All of the shit links up. And then even in South America, their story would be the story of Lord Pakal and the Temple of Inscriptions, or Palenque. Google it. Because if you compare these stories and everything they say about these messiahs, Mithra, Zoroaster, Lord Pakal, Tutankhamun, Jesus, they're all the same. Like I've got a book here written by Maurice Cotterill named Age of the Super Gods. Yeah, and it's showing you how all these characters, basically the same thing is being said about all of them. Do you understand? And like I tell people, Christ is not one person. Christ is a consciousness that comes on the earth when it's needed. It's not going to come unless it's needed. Do you understand? Even prophets in themselves. A prophet is never sent to a nation unless that nation falls far away from the truth. Because if you never fell far away from the truth, there won't be no need for God to send a prophet, because you'll all be on the right path. So anytime you're reading about prophets, whether Bible, Quran, Torah, Egypt, whatever, know for a fact, okay, these people have fell off. So now people have to come and remind them of where they fell off, and remind them that, hold on, you've gone astray, mate. You've gone left with the thing. I have to take you back right and show you this shit. Do you understand? But anyway, the good Neteru took over by way of having the Harmash's child who Ra was trying to kill. So all these stories about in the Bible, killing of the firstborn son, and how Herod or whoever else or Nimrod was looking and they were killing all the firstborns and shit. This story goes back to our story in the Nile Valley of when Ra heard about this Harmash's child that's going to be born and is going to take over from him. So he was like, fuck that, we're going to kill this guy. So look for my man and kill him. So Isis and them were hiding out, Isis and Osiris, with the Horus, because they felt like, yo, Ra's going to look for us and kill this youth. And they had help from beings like Tahuti and stuff. And this is when they give you, when you do your own research, you'll hear about how Isis was hiding in the desert and the baby Horus got bit by a scorpion and he nearly died. And they had to save him. Tahuti had to help her save him and stuff like that. So all these stories about Pharaoh trying to kill the firstborn in the Bible or in the Torah and the Quran, and Moses trying to kill Moses, and Nimrod trying to kill Abraham and all the firstborn and stuff. Really, they're taking that from our story about the Harmash's child or the Messiah child, which was Horus. And if you study Horus, he's born on December the 25th, when they say Jesus is born at the winter solstice, when the sun dies and rises again. Yeah, he fed 1,000 people with one loaf of bread. He turned water into wine. He baptized people in the Nile, while Jesus baptized people in the Jordan River. He healed the blind by putting his hand over their eyes and wiping their eyes. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, we're not saying Joshua didn't do these things, but the Bible tells you Joshua grew up in Egypt, where he was exposed to all the Egyptian mysteries. So the only thing Joshua was doing in his time when he came later, which was 7 AD to 127 AD, he lived till 120 years. He never died on no fucking cross. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the Templars know this. But during his time, he was redoing the mysteries, because he was the Khristed one of his time. Doesn't mean he was the only one. And he never ever told you he was the only one. He told you he's fulfilling a prophecy. And there were people before him and there'll be people after him. And that you could even do greater things than he could. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the first family triad comes from Osiris, Isis, and Horus. That's where Christianity comes with this Trinity thing. Where they're like, okay, Mary, Joseph, Jesus, the Trinity. That shit there is taken from our family triad. We don't have one triad. We have loads of triads. We have the family triad that I just gave you. We have the triad of Ra, which is Atum-Ra, Atun-Ra, Amun-Ra. You have a creation triad where you have like Amun-Ra, Hika, and Sia. And then you have triads involving Huhi, who I introduced you to in the last live, the force of creative will. So we've got all types of triads. You understand what I'm saying? You've got Amun, Mut, Konsu, different. You've got war triads, different types of triad, fertility triads, because different deities specialize in different areas. Do you see what I'm saying? But they took that concept of the triad and turned it into the fake concept of the Trinity, where God's supposed to be the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, without no woman or feminine in there. You understand? They stole that from ours, because remember, when you speak about Asar, Aset, and Horus, that's like mother, father, and child. That's a proper thing. Do you understand? But today they're trying to take the woman out, and then we wonder why all these priests are turning gay and stuff. And from this family triad, when they was on earth giving us civilization and gifting us with the fruits of civilization, the Anunnaki used Isis's genes. Yeah, they used the genes from her nation, which means the Twa people. They were the people who Isis and Osiris were giving civilization to. So the little Twa man, or short little Anu people, pygmy people, metaphysical people, they're the ones who were benefiting from the fruits of civilization that were given through Asar and Aset. So even though they're known as Tarites, they're still known as the people of Isis, or the people of Osiris. So when you get to Genesis, it's talking about the genes of Isis, or the genes of this particular group of people that Isis was interacting with, which is the Twa people, which you can find in the Bible, like we told you, chapter 2, verses 11 to 15. The first place ever mentioned in the Bible, right there, before anything's even properly created, is the Nile Valley, Cush and Kemet. You understand? Havilah, they use sometime for Egypt, and sometimes they use Abyssinia for Ethiopia, but literally it's just saying Egypt and Ethiopia, or Egypt and Sudan, to be more precise. Okay, so they used the genes of Isis after the crash of Nibiru, and they had to reconstruct the planet. The genes of Isis were used to repopulate this planet Earth. You understand? When you go into the Mesopotamian region, which is Iraq, with Babylon and Sumeria and stuff like that, then they use different names for Osiris, Isis, and Horus. When you get over here in Iraq, for Osiris, they're going to call him Dumuzi. And then for Isis, they're going to call her Ishtar. And then for Horus, they're going to call him Tammuz. And that's why in Genesis 4, you see Tammuz's name come up. Tammuz ain't got nothing to do with Hebrews or Christians or Muslims, but he's in the Bible and the Torah and stuff. Like, hold on, what's he doing in there? Why are women weeping? They went to pray to God, and they started weeping for Tammuz. Like, it don't make no sense. It's because when they went to pray to God, they went to pray to that God, Tammuz. They were praying to Tammuz and weeping. But the Bible's not going to tell you that. They just put it down like they was going to worship Yahweh, and they just stopped, and some women were weeping to Tammuz. No, they went to weep to Tammuz. That's the God they went to pray to, which is a Babylonian God. Do you understand what I'm saying? And Horus, or Tammuz, was assigned the Messiah of man, because before that time they had a conflict going on with the Anunnaki, like two camps, like I told you, in the agendas and all that. And in the council, a decision was taken to just assign one deity, one Anunnaki, over the earth. So instead of having all these different deities and people are on this polygamy thing, it was assigned that this world would be assigned one deity over this planet. And that deity that was assigned, according to Sumerian doctrine, is Tammuz. According to Egypt doctrine, is Horus, which are equivalent. You see what I'm saying? But he became the Messiah of man. And through Horus, or Tammuz, the blueprint of religion was hammered out. Because remember what I said, they're not always working in our best interest. Not every instant. Some instance they're working in their best interest. So they was still on a kind of, yo, these humans are powerful and dangerous. We still need to control them. So we need to have a kind of doctrine that keeps them in line. So it was the gods themselves that first made religion to control us. So we won't get too big for our boots. Because really, if we seen one of them deities, yeah, other than the fact that they're bigger than us, they're still very human. So them deities were scared of us, their creation. It's like if we created something in the lab, we'd probably be scared of the bastard thing until we know its nature or whatever. Especially if we know it's dangerous and it's got our DNA and stuff. So the gods took precautions, and they came up with this religious blueprint to mind control the people, so that people would not step out of line and question too much or get too smart for their boots and that. And that was done by Tammuz, Enlil, Enki, because remember for a while Enki was disagreeable, and they did it in their own best interest. And that's where religion came from. And anytime the people tried to rebel, they'll get punished for it. That happened a couple times. But yeah, so going back to the story, in Akhenaten's time, he was the Osiris of his time. He was seen as the god of his time. He wasn't seen as a messiah or a prophet. They seen themselves as the god of the time. So his son, King Tut, was seen as the son of God of his time. And that led to what's known as the Amarna period, because just like you have people who have to come and remind you when you've strayed too far from the original thing, this is what happened with Akhenaten and King Tut. By that time in Egypt, Egypt was ready to innovate. Like, you got to understand, Egypt was so old, certain traditions were running for hundreds of thousands of years or tens of thousands of years at the very least. And so you had certain people in Egypt that wanted to modernize, say, oh, that's just some old fashioned thing, let's get rid of that ritual there, or let's get rid of this here. And then you had the old school in Egypt, like, nah, we're keeping this shit's been running for 10,000 years. So Egypt was at that stage where half of it wanted to innovate and modernize, like it could see going on around it with the rise of Assyria and the Mitanni Empire and the Hyksos. So there was a lot of things that was tempting Egypt to lose its identity. And in a lot of ways, we did lose our identity, especially after the invasion of the Hyksos and things like that. So when Akhenaten and King Tut came on the scene, they were sent as reminders, because a lot of people up to this day do not understand that Akhenaten wrote the Psalms. Yeah, because up to this day, they have never found no geezer named King David. If you find King David, yeah, dig him up and prove, okay, that's the King David from the Bible, I'll hold my hands up. Yeah, I'll hold my hands up. But up to date, they've never found no geezer named King David. Yeah, and they've found Akhenaten's whole city, his coffin, his corpse, his whole city, his son, his daughters, they've found all types of confirmation for Akhenaten. And when they found his city on the Temple of the Sun, it's Psalms 104. And the only difference is, instead of the word God, it's got the Aten. That's the only difference. Go and read Psalms 104 for yourself. Read Psalms 84:11 if you like. It says your Lord is a sun. So either the Christians or the people who wrote the Psalms worship the sun in the same way Akhenaten did, or somebody's trying to have our pants down. Somebody don't want us to know something here. So the Psalms goes back to Akhenaten, and actually goes back even further than Akhenaten, because Akhenaten was resurrecting the Psalms of Amenemhet, who was the real Abraham. You see all these biblical characters, they're based on real characters in our history. They're not real in the sense the Bible's giving you them. Like, there was never a Moses, there was never an Abraham. But you'll find all the characters they use to make up this Moses story. Like, it's probably 4 or 5 characters that make up Moses. It's probably 4 or 5 characters that make up Abraham. Probably 15 characters make up Jesus. This is how they do it. They're composite characters. But you will find all the composites in real African melanated culture. So you will find Ibrahim and Tirhu in Sumeria. Like, hold on, that sounds like Abraham. He was a priest, a high priest at Anu in the temple. His father was a priest. He moved into Canaan and stuff. Hold on, that's the Abraham story. Or you'll find Utnapishtim in Sumerian records. Hold on, a flood came, the ice caps melted. This guy got saved with 80 family members. The Bible says 8, but here it says 80. Okay, he was a geneticist. Okay, seen. His name is also Sudra or Atrahasis. That's why they got the Atrahasis tablet. Okay, it's mentioned in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Like, these are real characters that they find in Gilgamesh, Nimrod, Ibrahim. But we ain't never found no Abraham. We ain't never found no Jesus. We ain't never found no Job. We ain't never found no Moses. We ain't never found no Noah. We ain't even found a toothbrush for one of these guys, or a chair, or none of that kind of stuff. Do you understand what I'm saying? So Akhenaten was the Osiris of his time, and Tutankhamun was the Horus, or the Messiah, or the Hashemish child of his time. And that's why after Akhenaten was killed, they killed his son as well, because the people weren't going for it. And that kind of set in stone Egypt's downfall, because even though it was delayed by certain rulers like Ramesses and stuff, it's still kind of, if we would have went the other way and modeled ourselves after Akhenaten, I believe we would have lasted a bit longer. Even though it's controversial for me to say that, because a lot of people blame the downfall of Egypt on Akhenaten and the fact that he didn't want to have an army and all of that stuff there. But that's a discussion for the next day. I'm sound like Dr. Mumbi when I say that now. So yeah, the word Krassa became in Greek and Latin Christos, which later became Christ. Yeah, and in the Indus Valley, the same word Krassa became Krishna. So you have them Hare Krishnas. And remember, Haru, you can call one of Horus's names is just Ha in our language. Ha, Har, or Haru, Yeah, Haru. Now notice, we know Horus is the first, is the Christ, right? Is one of the Christ figures. So when you see like Hindus saying Hari, Krishna, they're really talking about Horus and taking it back to what we're speaking about here, even if they don't know it. Even if they think it's just some Hinduism stuff with the bindi in their head and they're doing a bunch of rituals, that shit traces back to Horus. That's why they say Hari, Hare. That's the same as me saying Haru or saying Har, Har. And then the Krishna is the same Christos or the Krassa, going back to Osiris and Horus, the first two Krassa Messas. And then in Persian culture, they call that individual or that personality Mithra. And so they had an early religion called Mithraism, which had the same. Mithra was born on the 25th, and he was the son of a virgin, and he was the son of God. All this shit jumps from person to person, starting from Osiris and Tammuz, and then the character just changes. But it's the same fucking story. There might be slight differences in the details. It's the same story. It's not one person. Christians are trying to own it. Like, we own Jesus. Jesus is a Christian thing. Jesus is not a Christian thing. Well, Jesus is. I'm talking about the Christ. The concept of the divine Christed individual that can wake us up and enable us to wake ourselves up and stuff. You understand what I'm saying? That's an old story. That's not. It doesn't come from Christianity. Nothing comes from Christianity or Islam or Judaism. Okay? So yeah, it becomes Krishna. And Krishna had different incarnations as well. He came again at different times in the Hindu story. So he might come again as the character called Vishnu. And they will tell you, yeah, it's an incarnation of Krishna. So Vishnu, do you understand what I'm saying? And then just to clear it up, there was a black man named Joshua HaMashiach, who was a man who was living in the Levant, or where you would call Israel today, or the Qumran community. He was a, if you want to say Israelite, yeah? He was a black Nubian Shemite living in the Levant. Him and his father and mother ran to Egypt, and he grew up there till he was 13. He returned to the Levant as Joshua HaMashiach at the age of 13, smashed up the temple, and went to live with the people who live a bush. That's what we were saying, black people language. They live in the forest, or they live off the grid. These people that live off the grid were called the Essene community, meaning that they didn't agree with how Jerusalem was being run, the temple of God and all of that stuff. They thought it was corrupted by Greeks, Herod the Great and all these Greeks and stuff. So they didn't want to live as a part of Jerusalem. They went into the wilderness and formed their own community. And that community, later on in our modern times, is where they found what's called the Dead Sea Scrolls, which have these biblical stories in a lot more detail than the Bible has them. They're written on sheepskins, a lot of them. But in these canopic jars, they found all these scrolls that they're calling the Dead Sea Scrolls, because that's the region of the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea's in that region. The caves that, and it was found by a little shepherd boy while he was rounding up his flocks. Some of them have ran into the little cave and shit. You understand? And they don't reveal the full teachings of the Dead Sea Scrolls, because it will show you that Bible shit see-through. That Jesus character that they've made up in the Bible is a composite character, and it's not similar at all to what the Dead Sea Scrolls tells you about this Joshua character. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, they tell you that Joshua smiled, he laughed, he had jokes. So the guy had some kind of personality. He wasn't just the thou shalt not this, and floating over here to go shop and floating over there to go toilet. The man was like me and you. Do you understand? He married Mary Magdalene. The Dead Sea Scroll says that he kissed her often. So he was affectionate. He was somebody who shows affection to his wife. The church and the Bible is not going to show you this shit. Hebrew Israelites ain't going to show you this shit. They don't even believe in Joshua. They think he weren't the Messiah for them. They're going to wait on someone else. That's how real Jews feel about Jesus. Yeah, and then the Muslims, they're none the wiser. They don't know who they're following. They're just recycling the stories that are handed to them from previous religions. You understand? So there was a real person named Joshua HaMashiach, and his mother was named Miriam. Do you understand what I'm saying? And he was the seed of the angel Nusku. You see, when Christians tell you, okay, he had an immaculate conception, he don't have no father. He did have a father. When the Bible are telling you that Gabriel came, like it's just some spook story, some angel with wings floated out the sky, yeah, and told Mary, you're going to have a baby next year, yeah, without no man. and he's going to become bloody Jesus. Yeah. From our side of the story, Anunnaki came here. I'm talking about in the form of a man, because a lot of the time people don't get, for an Anunnaki to manifest into this realm, he can't just come and not follow the rules of this earth. He still has to follow all the rules here, even, unless you got some technology. So as a man, yeah, when Gabriel comes, he's a man. He's got penis, he's got blood, he's got skin, he eats, he sleeps, he lives his experience on earth as a man. So when Gabriel or Nusku came to Mary, they had sex. It's him who's the father. So that means the Joshua is half Anunnaki and half human, or what you would call a demigod. The same thing that happened in Genesis chapter 6 verses 1 to 7, when it says, and the sons of God came down and they found the daughters of men attractive, and they went into them, they had sex with them, they made babies. Do you understand? So when it gets to the Christian story, they're just trying to give you that same spook business, that click puff the magic dragon shit. Like, but if Yoshi was a man, then he has to have a Y chromosome, and Mary can't give him no goddamn Y chromosome, because women has 2 X chromosomes. So where did he get the Y chromosome from? He got it from the male Anunnaki who came to Mary to mate with her, not just to speak some bullshit fairy tale. He came to mate with her, and from that mating, the child that was produced is remembered today as Joshua, or who people want to associate with Jesus, but we'll get to that. So yeah, Joshua HaMashiach, he, and Mashiach is just a Aramaic Hebrew way of saying Messe. In Egypt, when we say Messe, anointed, in Semitic languages, that becomes in Arabic Masi, M-A-S-I-H, Masi, yeah? And in Hebrew or Aramaic, it becomes Mashiach, M-A-S-H-I-A-K-H, Mashiach, anointed, yeah? And so it's the same. So Joshua was born in 7 AD. He weren't even born in 1 AD, where they're tracking their calendar from. Their calendar's like 7 years off and that. So he wasn't born in 1 AD, as they like to tell you, BC, before Christ. And then so it gives you the idea like, okay, so 0 AD must be when Christ was born. And they track the calendar from there. They don't even know, you understand, that Christ was born in 7 AD, the real Joshua. Do you understand? Because think about it. Even if he was born in 1 BC, in 0 BC, yeah, AD is supposed to be Anno Domini, supposed to be after he died. So if he was born in 0 BC, that means he's dead in 1 year, because after 0 BC is 1 AD, yeah, after he's dead, Anno Domini, yeah. So that means he's only lived 1 year. People ain't even got that far yet. But he was born in 7 AD, and just like the Torah told you, because the Torah says the Messiah is going to be sent, and he will live 120 years. So either the Torah's lying, or the people who are telling you in church and shit are lying about he died on the cross at 33 and that was someone else. That weren't Joshua. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I want you to understand this as well. Remember we spoke yesterday about 9 ether, yeah? And how 9 ether in the all goes about creating all things. Yeah, it's a creative force, the creative force of will. Yeah, all existing gases and elements unified into conscience and a conscience and conscious all-powerful force. In the same way, when 9 ether dies over time, because it dies, it's a force. When it dwindles down over time, it breaks down into 6 ether. It loses its force while it's creating. While it's putting so much of itself into this stuff that it's creating physically, it kind of weakens and breaks down into what's called 6 ether. 6 ether doesn't have all the elements like 9 ether. So 6 ether's nature is reversed. So whereas 9 ether builds and grows universes and stuff, dimensions and shit, 6 ether destroys. So you've got birth and death going on at the same time, but not in the same place. Do you understand? So 6 ether is the opposite to 9 ether. And in the same way, over time, 6 ether breaks down. It slows down with all the stuff that it's destroying. So when 6 ether breaks down, it turns back into 9 ether. And when 9 ether breaks down, it turns into 6 ether. So life and death is just totally in a cycle all the time. But what I want to say as well, what a lot of people miss, even people who are supposed to know these teachings, they miss out that there's also 3 ether. And 3 Eva is a spin-off Eva that comes from the process. When 6 Eva turns back into 9 Eva, it lets off a ghost, or what you call ghost Eva. So you get Eva, 6 Eva, and then you get ghost Eva, or 3 Eva. The first people, black people, came out of 9 Eva. The Asian people came out of 6 Eva, Rahawa, magic and stuff. Yeah, we came out of facts, science, metaphysics. They came out of magic, mysticism, all that Rahawa shit. And then number 3, the ghost Eva, the Mzungu. And dealing with the ghost Eva, it's like this. You, the black man, you are the pinnacle of the forces, the creative forces of life. So because you came around in a solar cycle, and as a God being, you represent the pinnacle of the creative forces of life. So no one can match you in terms of the ancient cultures you produce, the spirituality you produce, the science you produce, the consciousness you produce in your civilizations. Yeah, you're the pinnacle of life. Whereas the Mzungu, he is the pinnacle of the natural forces of death. Do you understand? That's what empowers him, because he's coming from a ghost Eva. So his God is not your God. So when he's talking about Jesus, I remember Jesus is like, so if you put change the J to a G, it's like you're saying gases. Yeah, because you're dealing with a ghost Eva. Yeah, so when they tell you the gospel, they're telling you about the spell of the ghost. Because this ghost God, that Jesus, that Jesus, that Serapis, that is a ghost God. It's a ghost entity. It's a 3 Eva spirit force, and it's the pinnacle of the natural forces of death in creation. So that's why we see the Mzungu as the harbinger of death. Nobody can kill like him. Nobody can bomb like him. You can't out-bomb him. You can't out-kill him. He's got bloodlust. He'll spill blood. He don't even need a reason to kill a lion or a giraffe or animal. He don't need a reason. Do you understand? Because he's coming from the natural forces of death. He's the pinnacle of that shit. Just like you can't understand him because you're coming from the natural forces of life. Do you understand? So we're 2 different fucking entities. Do you understand? And then in the middle with the Asian man, it's like he's right in the middle in between. He's a bit of both. Do you understand? So that's coming from the 9 Eva, the 6 Eva, which results in 3 Eva. When 6 Eva turns back into 9 Eva, it lets off ghost Eva, or 3 Eva. Do you understand? And they line up with the cycles, solar cycle and golden solar cycle and silver moon cycle. And every time you have that switch around, it puts off ghost Eva. And that's where you get this Mzungu from. Okay? So the ghost god, or Jesus, or Serapis, or Caesar Borgias, is a real entity that represents the pinnacle of the natural forces of death in nature. Your god, Anu, or Amun-Ra, whoever god you want to call on, Yahuwah, whoever, he represents the pinnacle of the natural forces of life in nature. Yeah? And you must always distinguish. When people say spirit, there's 2 ways you can look at it, because you got God spirit force that's dealing with the 9 ether, and then you've got ghost spirit force. So some spirit is the spirit of the ghost. You're dealing with fog. You're dealing with this ghost ether shit. Yeah, and then some spirituality or spirit is dealing with a God force, like our traditional African spirits and stuff, spirituality and stuff, Maatian spirituality. So you got to distinguish between vividly. Don't just fall for any spirituality or word spirit just because they use the word spiritual or they use the word spirit. Yeah, Christ consciousness is returned to the planet now. When we read the scriptures properly, it warned us that a time will come on earth where there will be many messiahs. A lot of people will wake up and they will turn on that seat of consciousness. They'll sit in that seat. They'll become their own investigator. They'll become their own prophet. They'll become their own messiah, and they'll save themselves, because that's all Yahshua means. Yeah, self-savior. You understand? Save yourself. Do you understand? You will become the one that runs everything through your mental court of law. You understand? Where you're the judge, jury, and executioner sitting on that throne. And you'll be able to trust your own discernment and trust the conclusions that you come to from your own research and stuff. And then when you're interacting with people, it won't so much be a case of you're asking questions because you're looking to believe or not believe. You're asking questions more to understand more and to make your mental projection more vivid and to make it more where you can translate it to somebody else more easy. Do you understand? saying? There's a big difference. Not all spirit force is dealing with God force. Some of that shit there's out to trick you. Yeah, but what we're seeing in the earth now is the return of the Christed ones, or the return of Christ consciousness. People are still waiting for a white man to float out the clouds. A lot of people, or a black man. Because if you paint in black, it's still the same savior syndrome. A lot of people are waiting for a dude to defy gravity and float out the clouds. We spoke about that before. Yeah. But there are many messiahs, seers, sages, prophets, scribes, teachers, right here, right now, walking among you. From your families, from your social circles, in society, strangers, people on social media. You have to find them. If you can find them, listen to what they're saying and put them to the test. Yeah, test every spirit, because as much as there's Christed ones right now, there's also a lot of false prophets, and we spoke about the snake oil sellers. So your job now is to test every spirit. Test them in whichever way you test someone to know if, okay, this person here is fucking authentic, or this person's a clown, man. This person don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Do you understand? Test every spirit and see how it sits with you. Don't follow an ex-man or follow the crowd, or just because they listen to this guy, or just because you your own judge, jury, and executioner. Put it in your own mental court of law. Yeah, you become the God in your temple. You're sensible enough to discern truth from falsehood right now. Look how much shit has happened on earth with this scamdemic and this conspiracy, this and yo. If you're not in a position right now where if someone puts the information in front of you, you can't work it out for yourself, you're in a bad situation. We're supposed to be able to use this stuff I'm giving you or somebody else is giving you and say, you know what, this makes sense. I'm gonna follow this down and fucking query it, and I'm gonna use this as a reference while I go out in the field now and overturn other things and look at other things, and you build up your own reference. Do you understand what I'm saying? That means if you do that, you're a damn Christed one yourself. You could be a Christed one and not even know it. Do you understand? All the while you've been walking around, yeah, thinking about what is the truth of all this madness, and you are the fucking truth. You are the spell. You understand? It's just that you will only realize that once you come to it, once you wake up and think, bastard, I always had the answers in me. I have everything I need to flesh out this truth right now, because everything they told me is bullshit. Yeah, and all I have to do is find those who vibrate on the same frequency as me, because it's out there. The knowledge is being put out there. The wisdom is being put out there. The understanding is being put out there. But we're getting distracted by the glitter. Everything that glitters ain't gold. Every large platinum ain't real. Every large person trying to go on like he's Christed isn't a Christed one. That's what I'm saying. You have to have your own test as how you test people. Do you understand? But men and women, it's not just men. You will have females that are Christed ones more and more, because religion tries to go on like the only people that can be prophets or Christed ones is men. But I'm going to read you something out of the Golden Child, because a lot of the time in my books I'll put it in question and answer format so you can learn better. This is page 59. Yeah, I think it's chapter 2, and it says, question: so the precept of the Krassa Messa was a precept of consciousness before Christianity was even invented? Answer: exactly so. Suten Akhenaten and his son Suten Tutankhamun were a one-off and exclusive sect who were sent as the Asaru and Haru of their day and time. All messiahs are born into the same struggles with a different set of circumstances and a difference in the cycles of human beings. A messiah only incarnates when time is critical. These stories were hijacked by Caucasians and then distorted to fit their own delusions and fantasies, after which the pure facts became confused. When you stare at the glorious golden mask of Tutankhamania, that's the Bantu way of saying Tutankhamun, Tutankhamania, which shines with the brilliance of the sun, you are staring at the face of the Son of God. Just like the people of his day and age, many of you do not accept the precept of a Messiah now because of the trauma of Caucasian religious spookism. So what I'm saying, when you look at that golden mask of King Tut and say, yo, that's one of the most beautiful Asian artifacts, yeah, and people are talking about they're looking for the face of Jesus and to prove if Jesus was real. Jesus weren't real, but that's the Son of God. That's the son of the Krassa Messa. So as far as I'm concerned, there's your Messiah. You looking and thinking, bastard, look how did they make that mask, how much gold's in it, look how exquisite this shit look. Now you know why that shit's so otherworldly. There ain't nothing like that in the world. You can't go nowhere. I don't care if you're in America, here, UK, China. Go and find me something that looks like Tutankhamun's treasures, his mask and his sarcophagus and shit. That's the most exquisite piece of archaeology I've seen anywhere. And you'd have to be biased to disagree with that. That shit there is off-world. Do you understand? Jesus told you, I don't come from here. I come from up there. Do you understand? In my father's house, he's got many mansions. That shit was otherworldly. You're dealing with alien extraterrestrial culture there. Do you understand? When you stare at the glorious mask of Tutankhamania, which shines with the brilliance of the sun, you are staring at the face of the Son of God, the son of the Krassa Messa. Just like the people of his day and age, many of you do not accept the precept of a Messiah now because of the trauma of Caucasian religious spookism. They killed the concept with the whole Caucasian Jesus, Caesar Borgias, Jesus bullshit, and it really has bullshit in there. So it is understandable that many of you want nothing to do with any concept of any Messiah, whether you're painting black or make him Egyptian or whatever. Yeah, indeed, we are all our own saviors. But from time to time, one has to be sent that can show us how to save ourselves when the wisdom becomes obscure, like today in 2022. Truth is obscure, and most people think it's a conspiracy theory. This is the time. This is a time of messiahs right now. This is a perfect description of these last days and times. Boom. The end of the world as you have come to know it. This is the reason why the Amun priesthood in Akhenaten's time performed the most hasty burial of the Tutankhamun, in brackets the clone, a story for another day, and did their very best to erase the names of him and his father from all of the monuments and king lists. They tried to rid Kemet, Egypt, of the very memory of them because they detested them and blamed every evil that befell New Kingdom Egypt on them both. If people would have ever found the body of Akhenaten and Tutankhamun, they would have probably destroyed and desecrated their corpse. So what I'm saying is the people and the priesthood, they didn't accept this Krassa Messa Christ consciousness stuff. They wanted to stick with the buffoonery that they were going on with the you know, idol worship and stuff, because Egypt did get to that stage where we fell away from the real teachings and started getting into a lot of superstition and shit. It became a very superstitious country. So in the time of Akhenaten and stuff, and this is mentioned in Quran too, when Akhenaten was sent with these Psalms of Akhenaten and the oneness of the Aten, how all Neteru are a unified whole, and it's not about the Amun priesthood who are kind of overplaying their role like the church do today. They were just faking it with all this superstitious shit that the people sided with the Amun priesthood. They didn't like Akhenaten and his son King Tut. So they had to hide them bodies. They couldn't just bury them anywhere. People would have digged up them bodies and mash up the bodies. That's how they felt about Akhenaten and King Tut. They really didn't like them. They was known as heretics. You understand what I'm saying? This is how much those two names became despised for trying to endarken New Kingdom Kemet. This is the true story of these two glorious messiahs whose reputations were destroyed based on outright lies. Every despicable thing has been said about them both to discredit their significance and true identity. So you will see in Egyptology today, they will try and tell you that King Tut was deformed. Oh, he walked with a limp. He had a staff. One of his legs was longer than the other leg, which is pure bullshit. He had an accident, which is the cause of why they feel in their studies that when he fell off his chariot and messed up his knee, yeah, they feel like he was born like that. So he was some kind of cripple with a walking stick and that. But he fell off his chariot and messed up his knee. Do you see what I'm saying? And then they'll say things about Akhenaten like, oh, this guy was gay. Do you understand? Because Akhenaten, a lot of people don't know, was a hermaphrodite. He was born with both male and female parts. And there's a reason for that in Kemet, even though it sounds weird. Do you understand what I'm saying? So because he was born as a hermaphrodite, that alone made a lot of people like, yo, they don't really want to, I don't like this. This is weird. And they want him to depict himself as just fully masculine, like just lie about how he looked. And he weren't having it. He was like, no, I want my artist to draw me how I look. So if I got wide hips and breasts and stuff, you got to draw me like that. And another one of them that came like that was Pharaoh Hatshepsut, who was a hermaphrodite. So she was both male and female. So she depicted herself with the pharaoh's beard and everything. And what Egyptology and our culture like to do is make excuses for it. Say, oh, it's just a woman, but she wanted to wear a beard and she wanted to be a pharaoh because women weren't allowed to be pharaohs, which is bullshit. We already had Queen Sobek-Neferu in the 13th dynasty. Like, what? Fucking about, let's say, 1786, around them times. She came on the throne in the 13th dynasty. She was a full-fledged pharaoh. Do you understand what I'm saying? But they make excuses. Yeah, and that's why, and so they'll say things like, oh, maybe he had Marfan syndrome. That's why he had the wide hips like woman and the breast and he had features like a woman, even his face and stuff, even though you could still see sometimes he looked like a man. So Akhenaten was a test for Kemet, and they didn't do well in that test. But let me finish it from this book so I can wrap this up for you. There are many ignorant black people caught up in the isms and schisms of the Caucasian and his Jedi mind tricks, and they will not be able to digest certain levels of information and intellect. They can only think what their doctrines have programmed them to think, and that is okay. I'm not concerned with them. I am only concerned with finding the others. There are only 144,000 of us. Along with Benjamin, son of my right hand, and Dan, they became the last tribe, or the lost tribe of Judah, who Joshua HaMashiach insisted were the only people he was sent to. Okay, so that's from the Golden Child, which goes into that whole Krassa Messa stuff, but let me wrap this up for you. So yeah, people like Marcus Garvey, Noble Jew Ali, Elijah Muhammad, Juicy Ali, Clarence 13X, Bobby Seale, Huey P. Newton, Eldridge Cleaver, H. Rat Brown, Matulu Shakur, who else? Who else have we got? Anyway, these people are modern day prophets. Bob Marley, Tupac Shakur, Nipsey Hussle. Doesn't matter how you feel about your religion, like prophecy is something that must be reserved for some made up religious characters. Prophecy is for real. And black people have always had prophets. We never stop having them. Every generation of black people, if you search properly, you'll say, bastard, my man was a prophet. Or yo, she was a prophet. Or yo, he was like a seer. Or yo, he was like a teacher. We've always got the guidance and the prophets because we're closest to God. Do you understand? So all them people that I just called, they were Christed ones. They were messiahs of their times. Look what Marcus Garvey did. He's comparable to their stories they have about Moses. They've never found this Moses character. But we definitely really did have a Marcus Garvey. That was just the other day. You understand what I'm saying? People like Noble Jew Ali, look at the legacy he left with the Moorish Science Temple. And whether you agree with Moorish science or not, you can't deny that it put black people in a better position than we were before we had that kind of knowledge among us. Do you understand? Because if it wasn't for the Moorish Science Temple, there would be no Nation of Islam. Because both Elijah Muhammad and W.D. Fard were members of the Moorish Science Temple. Do you understand? So we wouldn't have no Nation of Islam without the Moorish Science Temple. That means we won't have no 5% Nation of Gods and Earths. We won't have no Clarence 13X. We won't have certain ways of thinking like Nas and Wu-Tang and stuff in our music and stuff. We'll be worse off. Do you understand what I'm saying? And you have prophets like Elijah Muhammad, what he did with the Nation of Islam, whether we agree with what Farrakhan says or not. We know he changed the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, him and Warif Deen. But as a institution, it's still very relevant for black people to have a Nation of Islam, whether it's we need bodyguards like Michael Jackson did to go to his court case or whatnot, or Muhammad Ali with his boxing and stuff. We needed these stepping stones. You see, we always looking for perfection. We're looking for the mistake in each of these guys. Oh, Elijah Muhammad said this, so I don't listen to him, he's a fraud. Or Noble Jew Ali said this, and I don't agree with that, so I don't listen to Moorish science. We don't understand that all of these guys had mistakes. They were just stepping stones to step us out of this conventional way of thinking to do with other people's religions, whether it's the Islam, Orthodox Christianity, Orthodox Judaism. These guys were sent to step us out of that shit. Of course, they had certain mistakes in their doctrines and stuff, but that shouldn't stop us from studying the teachings that each and every one of these people brought for us. Frances Cress Welsing, Dr. Frances Cress, may she rest in eternal peace. That's another Messiah. I don't care what no one says. That's a female Messiah for you. She was shouting in the wind in her time when she was at her height. No one was listening to her. We listen to her now she's passed. When she was in her old age and ready to go, That's when we started paying attention to her and stuff. But all these people are Christed ones, even ones we didn't get to experience ourselves, like Drusilla Dundee Houston, rest in peace, Justified True of Voice. She was someone who wrote one of the best books on Kushite history, the wonderful Kushites and the Ethiopian Empire in the 1900s. She didn't get no credit for writing that book. Now, right now, that's one of the best jewels we've got. And now ancient history going way back into Tarseti, Old Man Kush. Do you see what I'm saying? These people are messiahs, and we're supposed to look for them and hold them up on a pedestal, just like white folk do David Icke. He's a messiah for them. Or Zachariah Sitchin, or whoever else. Do you understand? They hold their shit up. They make sure they make these guys blow. So everybody got to pay attention. Even if you're not white, you got to know who David Icke is. Do you understand? That's how they roll with their shit. But us black people, we're tight. We don't even want to put a like on a man's video. Never mind fork out money to buy some shit that he's put in a book or whatever. Do you see what I'm saying? So Christed people have always been here with us. A lot of our messiahs and prophets got took out. They died. They were martyred for the messages that they bore. Like Fred Hampton, rest in peace, Justified True of Voice. They had to die for the shit that they came to tell us and the shit that they came to give to the world. So all of them people, they are messiahs, yeah? And what you must understand too, you might not think it's real, this Messiah stuff and the Christ consciousness, but fucking government, especially the American government, they know that this shit I'm talking about is real. That's why they made up COINTELPRO, because they were trying to stop the rise of another black Messiah. That J. Edgar Hoover said, yo, we never again are we going to allow a fucking Messiah to rise up again like Marcus and Malcolm X and all them kind of man there. We're going to wipe them all out, and from here, if any of them man ever come again, we made him. That's a fucking plan. You understand how deep these men are saying that? So that a lot of us are arguing about religion. We don't believe in this shit Jedefre's saying, but they're fucking funding COINTELPRO and killing every bastard that sounds like he's got common sense or that he can spark some neurons in the people. They're going to take his ass out. That's how serious it is for them. They can't even afford to have that kind of shit. A man coming and waking up the people. Look what happened the last time that happened. You know who it happened with? Malachi York. That's who they were looking for. They were looking in the wrong place. They were looking for a militant, Malcolm X, guns, all of us like a jam master kind of thing, and overlooking the fact that, yo, there's a man over there with some weird-ass teachings that's taking the layers off of all these religious books and shit. And by the time they caught on and got rid of him by mashing up his character, by saying, yeah, he played with little kids and rare, that's the worst thing they can say. If they said tomorrow, Jedefre Memnon has been caught fiddling with children, half of you motherfuckers will never tune back into another one of my videos. Whether I was guilty or innocent, you wouldn't even care. That shit there will stick like shit on the wall. So the best thing they can do, which they've found out, when they need to get rid of someone, because they know black people will turn on their own fucking people. Yeah, just say he's a kiddie fiddler, innit? Say he's a kiddie fiddler, and they'll stop listening. But by the time they did that, the message was already too strong. They didn't want this shit to come into 2000. They tried to get rid of my man before 2000 came. They got him in 2002. Do you understand? He warned us. He said, I'll have 30 years, and then the Mzungu will come for me. He will come for me, and then you have the last 30 years going to 2030, you'll be on your fucking self. That's how much we knew what was going on. And he lasted to 2002. But that's what they were looking for. They didn't want you to get these kind of fucking jewels that we're giving you now. But if it wasn't for him getting that message into the 2000s, there wouldn't be a Jedefre giving you this live right now. There won't be certain other influences giving you certain jewels. Because I'll tell you this for a fact, like I said about young Pharaoh when he came out, I said, you see that guy? My man's using Dr. York's teachings, and he doesn't want to say to people that half of my shit's Dr. York shit. He's there slagging off Dr. York. Oh, yo, he's a kiddie figure, he's a paedophile, rare. You going on like you're a messiah, and you can't even see that they set that man up. Yeah, but you're using his information to big up your own platform. I'm not surprised he went down the way that he went down. Because them man there, snake oil sellers, because they're not giving, they're not really saying, okay, well, half of this shit I'm talking to you came via this avenue. This is where I'm getting it from. So I don't know what happened here. They ain't even being real about it. I'm being real with you. Half of these motherfuckers out here are using Dr. York's information, and they're not willing to tell their fan base that they're dealing with a Dr. York thing, because black people are ignorant. So half of us haven't even looked into that shit properly. We don't believe in corona and the news tell us about corona, but we're willing to believe what the news tells us about our own black leaders and shit. Like they tried the same shit with Elijah Muhammad, and black people switched on Elijah Muhammad. They said, oh, he's the one who killed Malcolm X. He's breeding up all these women and leaving them as single mothers and shit. They tried it with Martin Luther King. They said, oh, this guy's had an affair with his secretary and shit like that. If you get the scroll, Are There Black Devils? Baba actually says in there, when he speaks about Jesus' son, because Jesus had a son, all you have to do is turn to Acts 13:6, and you can read about Simon Bar Jesus, the sorcerer, who was the son of Joshua, yeah, who a lot of this Christianity today, him, Simon Bar Joshua, and Paul, they're responsible for all that Greco-Roman bullshit. But you can read about him, and in the Black Devil book, it was telling you the story of him and how he was trying to work against his dad, and when his dad Joshua was saying, yo, I've only came to the Yehuda, the tribe of Judah, black people. I'm not going up in Greece and Rome to speak to no Gentiles. He's saying that's not the mission. Yeah, his son disobeyed and went and started teaching these Muzungu man them. You understand what I'm saying? And his son was ready to shop him, to have him killed by Herod and them. So Dr. York was saying, yo, in the same way, my sons will do the same shit to me. I've got sons who flex like that. I remember reading this in the Black Devil scroll, Are There Black Devils? And I said, yo, that's some serious shit. And it weren't long after I read that I heard on the grapevine, yo, they went to Tamaray and fucking licked down the Black Pyramid and locked up Dr. York and rare. This is going back to 2002. I had just landed back in England. But if you go into that COINTELPRO stuff, that's exactly what they was looking for, and they missed it. They didn't see him till it was too late. And a lot of us already had the jewels. We already had our holy tablets. It's like this. Most people that diss Dr. York will not diss the teachings. You won't hear them saying nothing about the teachings. They'll just attack the character one time. They'll attack the character that they don't know. They'll say, okay, this man slept with children and that. None of their argument would be about, okay, Anunnaki, Anu. Some of them will, some stupid ones. But the majority of the time, it's this, you understand? And there was a lot of people who, because remember, Dr. York's been teaching since 1967. So there's a lot of teachers that have been teaching since 1967. Not a lot of them stayed relevant until 2002. From 1967 or the 70s to 2002. There's a lot of fake gods and false Christ. Like, I'll give you an example. What's his name of the Hebrew Israelites? Yahweh ben Yahweh. He came out and he was talking about how no one can touch me. I'm the son of Yahuwah, and Yahushua will mash up white man if they touch me, and rare. And to the point where when Dr. York first started bringing out his books, because he was writing all them books, 460 books, Yahweh ben Yahweh tried to match and bring out his own books, Hebrew Israelite books. And down the line, it got discovered that this guy weren't even writing his own books. He was paying someone to write books for him to make it seem like he can write books too. Like sham. And then if you go, there's a whole bunch of them. Yeah? These fake prophets, man, these false Christs. And also, understand this. There's not a lot of black people that step outside of history, yeah, and go into science and go into metaphysics and go into quantum teachings, yeah, and go into all these different fields, aliens, yeah, all this type of shit, yeah, and you confirm that they're right. Like, most of our teachers are history teachers. Whether you got a Dr. Ben, a Ashra Kwesi, you do have some metaphysics like your Bobby Hemmett's and your fucking Phil Valentine, but there was no one that even wrote like 40 books, never mind 460 books on every topic under the fucking sun, bro. Brothers and sisters, you understand what I'm saying? So this is what it means about the Khristed ones. You can read in the Old Testament, the prophets, the book of Malachi, yeah? And the first chapter is only 4 chapters. It's like 2 pages. It's only 4 chapters. The first chapter is about the Israelites, yeah, the Hebrew thing, and how we as Hebrew fucked up our covenant with the Anunnaki. And the second chapter, Malachi 2, is about the Ishmaelites. This is Moors, and how we, in the Islam thing, we fucked up our covenant. And the third chapter, it says, and in the last days, I'm going to send Elijah. Yeah, I'm going to send my angel, Malachi. But before I send my angel, Malachi, I'm going to send Elijah. So Elijah the prophet Elijah, is going to reincarnate. Today you call him Elijah Muhammad. And then after this, Elijah comes again to turn the fathers back to the sons and the sons back to the fathers and the mothers back to the daughters and the daughters back to the mothers. Then I'm going to send my angel. And my angel, Malachi, means my angel. My angel is going to speak with a double-edged sword. He's going to be like a refiner's fire. This is what the Bible says. This is the last book of the Old Testament. This is how the Old Testament finishes. It talks about now, the last days. And it says, yo, when I send my angel, this Malachi, he's going to speak with a refiner's fire. That means half of you motherfuckers won't even be able to take what he's saying based on programming that we've had before about Christianity or Islam, Allah, Jesus, Yahweh. Half the shit will shake you off your foundations. He's going to speak with a double-edged sword. And it's going to be like a refiner's fire. And it says he will take you, sons and daughters, the real Israelites, and it will be like when you find that gold, the diamond in the dirt. When you find a diamond, it just looks like a piece of dirt. You can't even see the diamond. You have to put it in a refiner's fire and burn off all the impurities, what they call the ore. When you burn off all the impurities, you're left with that glistening diamond when you've polished it and shit. So the Bible was trying to tell you that's how he's going to take you lot. You people are going to be like that piece of diamond in the dirt. And this man's going to put you in the refiner's fire and burn off all that fucking bullshit that they've put on you through school, public education, religion, family ignorance and tradition. All that fucking shit that we took on, them layers of filth, is going to be burnt up. And we're just going to be left with the glistening diamond. Because you have not changed from the beginning of times. Yeah. And God said, so I haven't changed from the beginning of times. So before this world goes up in smoke, he says he's going to send his angel. First he's going to send Elijah, and then he's going to send Malachi, his angel. We've had Elijah Muhammad and Malachi York, who are literally saying the same things when you take off the details and leave the template. Yo, and we still don't get it. We still listening to the Mzungu. We still think this guy's a fraud. But all of his teachings are going on now. Nobody else, no Bobby Hemmett, no Phil Valentine, nobody save probably Dr. Delvit Blair, rest in peace, was telling us about reptilians, Alpha Draconians, Anunnakis, fucking hell. No one, cloning, organic robotoids. All of this shit is the realm of Dr. York. None of these niggas out here talking about their teachers and the conscious community, none of them was on that shit. None of them even backed that shit up while he was out here teaching us. You understand? But he gave us all of the 460 books about all of this shit. Different constellations, man from planet here, greys, reptilians, fucking insects that look like predators, cloning, the whole shit, AI, the supercomputer, hollow earth. You understand? All of these fucking topics, man. You understand? And we can't see that bastard. We had a Messiah among us, and up to today, we're not willing to really see that we have Khristed ones among us. Not only people like him, but people that come from other Khristed ones' teachings. People who came from Noble Drew Ali's teachings, the Moorish Science Temple. People who came through Dr. York. People who came through Elijah Muhammad. All different camps, man. They're here among us right now. COINTELPRO, the search for the Black Messiah, was designed to stop having man like Dr. York. And they didn't stop it. And when they finally stopped it, it was too late. Because that message is already coming to the now. We're still talking about Anu and the Anunnakis and the whole shit. Do you understand? And the confirmation for you guys should be the book of Malachi. Because there's no book in the Bible called Phil Valentine. Or the book of Bobby Hemmett. Or the book of fucking Delbert Blair. The Ross Clark book that finishes the Torah is called the book of Malachi. And read that Ross Clark 2 pages of what it says and see for yourself. And then go and study that dude. And ask yourself, yo, do I really believe this guy did rape them children in that? Because if you do the maths up, we're mathematicians, students of Dr. York. So that means he had to rape them children, like something like 20 children every day at fucking 65 or 70 years old. Come on, man. Not even the maths adds up. A 70-year-old man raping 20 children a fucking day for like 3, 4, 5 years. It's just ridiculous. But we don't question this shit. We just, because we want an excuse to not believe what this dude has said, because it's too detrimental to our paradigm, our Christianity, or our Islam, or our views on Selassie, or whatever. You understand? So the new covenant that the book of Malachi speaks about is talking about now. Chapter 3, the awakening, the new covenant. Them 2 covenants are gone. All that old religious shit, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, that's fucking washed. Y'all fucked up. Yeah. Now we're having a new knowledge, a new awakening, a new covenant between the Anunnaki and humans, which is now. That's the window we're in now. And then the last chapter of the book, chapter 4, speaks about the end of the world as you've come to know it. I don't mean the earth blows up. I mean the world that we've come to know: capitalism, working 9 to 5, pensions. We only keep 40% of our money, the monetary system. All of that shit's gone, mate. Politics, all that shit's done. Do you understand? It's the end of that. And that's what we're seeing now with this build-up with critical race theory, which is just Muzungu history. Muzungu history, that's all they need to call it, Muzungu history. Why are you calling it critical race theory? We know it's critical, but it's your history. It's your legacy. Muzungu history is what we should call it. Yeah? And then you're seeing all of the stuff that's coming out right now with the pedophilia, where it's exposing the royal family. Yeah? He now gets away, Prince Andrew, yeah, bringing out the royal family in the spotlight, showing you this chrome culture, the giant chrome, yeah, trafficking children and shit, yeah, Hollywood, everything Hollywood do, like everything's being thrown the fuck up, because in 2030 this shit's a wrap, bro. This shit's crumbling right now. Not even Donald Trump can save this bitch. As much as they want us to present him like some kind of messiah, not even he can hold this fucking lie up no more. The whole shit's been seen through. They had to get him out of there. Do you understand? Yeah, that's where we are. So understand, you may be a Khristed one yourself. Yeah, if you've watched this from the beginning to the end, I'd put my money on it that you probably a Khristed one in your circle yourself. Do you understand? And all you need to do is trust yourself. Trust the decisions that you make yourself and how you feel about certain things. Don't think just because how you feel doesn't match with other people that you're wrong or some shit like that. Stick to you, stand on your truth, man. You understand? And do your own investigation. Because we're going into a period now where they're going to present a lot of false messiahs. They're going to have women ones. They're going to have black ones. They're going to have white ones. They're going to have child ones. Everybody's going to be a fucking messiah soon. So if you're not able to tell the difference between someone who's just faking it and who's, they're not real, and someone who's really out here putting themselves on the line to present you with some information that may be of benefit to you and help you get through, navigate this maze now that they've created with this chaos. Do you understand? You have to differentiate between the two. Before I go, yeah, is there any questions? Because I think my battery flashed up, so I need to go. Otherwise, I'm going to lose this live. So what I'll do, if you guys have got any questions in regards to messiahs and Khristed ones and stuff, stick it on the comment section, and at some point I'll get to it. Otherwise, I'm going to lose this live. It's probably on 5-6% right now. We love you all. That's the end of the transmission. Thanks for tuning in. Peace. Namaste.